We have a very large crowd. Welcome you. Okay. We're really, but we're all really glad that you're here. Okay. And for those of you who don't remember who I am, I'm Rabbi Scott Colbert. Hi. Rabbi Emeritus, a title that I enjoy immensely. As I just said to Eve, I said, it's past my bedtime, what can I say? Anyway, let's start off with some songs and get into the Shabbat mood, and then we'll do a little safety check and whatever. So.
To be here. It's good to be with you. And so I'm going to do Hine Matov. You can join me.
Thank you. What a lovely, lovely voice. We are enchanted.
Thank you.
So I know that I'm supposed to do this. So in case there's an emergency, I can't wait. Our exits are directly towards the back and to the sides. I've always wanted to do that. Put on your seatbelts. Okay. And if the oxygen masks drop down, run. So, as we welcome Shabbat, we have to ask where the week has vanished. Is it lost forever? Will I ever recover anything from it? The joy of life, the unexpected victory, the realized hope, the task accomplished. Will I ever be able to banish the memory of pain? The sting of defeat, the heaviness of boredom. On this day, let me keep for a while what must drift away. On this day, let me be free of the burdens that must return. On this day, Shabbat, abide. I'm going to ask you to rise for the candle blessing. as we light our Shabbat candles, and then we'll have the blessing, and then I invite you to come forward as we sing Light These Lights.
Baruch atah
Adonai,
Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Please come forward, light a Shabbat candle as we sing Light These Lights. If you want, you may be seated.
Oh, hear my prayer, I sing to
you.
Be gracious to the ones I love, and bless them with goodness and mercy and peace. Oh, hear my prayer to you. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say amen. Let us light these lights and see the way to you, and let us say amen.
And our service continues with the singing of Lecha Dodi, page 138 in your prayer books. We are using the Mishkan Tefillah, which you will find underneath your seats, hopefully. If you get the big book that says the Torah, it's the wrong book. Go to the next seat and take one that says Mishkan Tefillah. Page 138, we will be doing verses 1, 2, 5, and 9. Now, Lecha Dodi, as you all know, was written by Kabbalists, welcoming Shabbat as a bride. A bride. Why a bride? Because with every bride and groom, it says the world begins anew. And next week, may the world begin anew, and all of the cares that we've had in the past week leave us. Again, Lecha Dodi, page 138. We rise for the 9th verse, the last verse, just the last verse. You can sit down. page 146. We remain standing for Baruch Hu.
Oops, wrong. Gotta take that off.
On page 151, let us read together at the middle of the page. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol. All these things your Torah gives to us, and the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works, in the living language that it gives form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. Shema, page 152.
Shema
Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kevod, Shem Kevod, Malchuto Le'olam, Le'olam Va'ed. You may be seated. We continue with "You shall love the Lord your God."
Thou shalt love Adonai thy God
with all your heart, with all thy soul, and with all thy might.
And all these words which I command you on this day shall be in thy heart, shall be in thy heart. And thou shalt teach them diligently unto thy children, and thou shalt speak of them when thou sittest in thy house, and thou walkest by the way, and when thou risest up, and thou liest down, when thou liest down. And thou shalt bind them for a sign upon thy hand, and they shall be for frontlets between thine eyes. And thou shalt write them on the doorposts of thy house, and upon thy gates, and upon thy gates, that you may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy unto your God, unto your God, unto your God.
Words of preparation and words of victory all are in our prayer for redemption, Michamocha, which we will be singing in just a moment. Just imagine yourself. Imagine yourself on one side with the Pharaoh's army coming towards you, the Sea of Reeds on the other. Where do I go? Where do I go? And the only thing that's going to save you is faith. Faith in God and faith to go forward. We say in modern Hebrew, kadima, always forward. We always go forward. We don't look back, we look forward. We go forward now with our Michamocha, prayer of redemption, which you will find in your prayer books on page 158. ונאמר, כי פדה אדוני את יעקב וגאלו מיד חזק ממנו. Baruch atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We praise you, Adonai, for redeeming our people Israel at the shore of the sea. Our night prayer, Hashkivenu, page 160. We pray that God keeps evil away from us and that we will be redeemed again and blessed under a Sukkot Shalom, under a sukkah of peace for all people, for us, the world, and the Jewish people, and Jerusalem. Hashkivenu.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu leShalom, leShalom, leHamidenu Shomrenu leChaim, ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha, ufros aleinu Sukkot Shlomecha. Amen. Shelter us beneath thy wings, O Adonai. Guard us from all harmful things, Adonai. Keep us safe throughout the night, till we wake with morning's light. Teach us, God, wrong from right. Amen. 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 Amen.
joy of the Shabbat is told to us in many ways. But let us read just a little bit on page 163. Together as we say, "We are a people in whom the past endures, in whom the present is inconceivable without moments gone by. The Exodus lasted a moment enduring forever. What happened once upon a time happens all the time." The Shamru, page 162. V'shamru b'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת בדרך המורית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת בדרך המורית עולם.
ונלווין בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת בדרך המורית עולם.
כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת בדרך המורית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש, שבת וינפש.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת בדרך המורית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת בדרך המורית עולם. Shabbat also reminds us that we are a congregation. All of you out on Zoom, on Facebook, on YouTube, and all of you here in the sanctuary. And our prayers for healing are very much a part of what we are here as a congregation, as a community. And tonight our prayers have been asked for Marlene Seidel, Pamela Richfeld, David Ben Label, Doba Elka Bat Gittel, Jerry Bialis, Deborah Gilbert, Harris Friedman, Charles Cohn, Brett Samsky, Leslie Greenberg, Shmuel Ben Devora, Joel Reish, Meir Ben Rachmiel Vadina, Ashish Sharma, Ken Schiffer, Helen Ray, Kathy Cook, Michelle Lappin, Daniel Bronson, Michelle Levy, Jeffrey Siegelman, Carolyn Serra, and Vlad Fishbein. Are there any other names that should be called out aloud at this time? Please. We rise for our Misha Berach prayer, which may be found on page 109. Who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. And as we have said, those who we care for and hold them in our hearts, you can be seated, yes, and pray for their health. We also realize there are wonderful things happening in this world and in your lives, our lives. I believe there is a 55th wedding anniversary. Bill and Rhea, welcome back from the UK. And you came right to services. I'm impressed. I'd be asleep. Okay. Happy anniversary. Others? Anybody else celebrating a birthday, an anniversary? Other good stuff? Happy birthday. Happy birthday. That's exciting. That's exciting. And we signed the lease for our apartment in Huntsville for the next year. We'll only be there 10 days a month. We'll still be here. But we did sign our lease, so that's a very exciting thing. So we continue with the Shechianu because that's what we do. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'achayanu v'kimanu v'hivianu b'zman hazeh. So first of all, Shabbat Shalom. That was good. It's good to be with you. It's very good to be with you. It's been a long time since I preached a sermon on this bima, so it's fun. So often, when I'm at the cashier at my neighborhood Publix, Patrick is at the register. And I always say, Patrick, how are you? And his answer is always the same. I woke up this morning. I woke up this morning. What an incredible thing. Because we are taught in Judaism, before you lift your head off the pillow in the morning, before you get out of bed or use the bathroom, even before you check your iPhone, you must, according to tradition, recite the words, Modeh ani lefanecha melechai v'kayam shehazarta bi nishmati b'chemla rabba emunatecha. Thankful am I to you, living and sovereign God, for your kindness in restoring my soul. How abundant is your faithfulness. To wake up in the morning, to see the dawn of a new day, to have one's soul returned in order to experience the miracle of creation yet again, this is an event worthy of daily appreciation and thanksgiving. The syntax of the Hebrew speaks to us of the theology. The first word, modeh, meaning to give thanks, is stated before the word ani, before the pronoun ani, as if to say That act of giving thanks, of expressing appreciation, that is what makes us who we are, defining us as human. Much in the same way as the story of the creation is punctuated by God's repeated refrain of kitov, it was good. So too, every human being created in the image of the divine must pause to reflect on the good, offer appreciation, and give thanks for the blessings, major or minor, of our existence. Up until this week's parsha, things have been going pretty good for the Israelites. We're in the book of Bamidbar, which translates not as numbers, but rather as in the desert, which is exactly where the Israelites find themselves, with very few exceptions, notably the golden calf a couple weeks ago. Things have been going very, very good. In fact, the people have been marching along, both literally and figuratively. Liberation from Egypt, the crossing of the sea, the giving of the law at Mount Sinai, and the construction of the Mishkan, the desert tabernacle to house God's presence. The Israelites are assembled in formation. Vayehi bin Soah Ha'aron, the Ark of the Covenant, leads the Israelite camp as they journey towards the Promised Land. Not once, not twice, but no fewer than 7 times the word tov, meaning good, or its variant is used in the final verses of Numbers chapter 10, which is in this week's portion, to describe Israel's state of affairs. Things are very tov, very good. Yeah. And then, without warning, the bottom falls out. Numbers chapter 11, a chapter whose title could not be more appropriate: the complaint at Taberah. First, the Israelites complain about manna, the food provided to them by God. Complaints that prompt Moses to cry out to God for being tasked with leading a stiff-necked people. And then, in chapter 12, Miriam and Aaron criticize both Moses' choice of spouse and his leadership. And then in next week's portion, chapter 13, 12 spies are sent to scout out the Promised Land. 10 return, claiming that the land cannot be conquered, a report that results in prolonging the desert wanderings for another 38 years. And soon enough, Korach and his followers lead an open rebellion against Moses. While the rebellion is put down, Moses' building frustrations burst forth as Israel cries out for water, and Moses lashes out at the rock, striking it when he was told only to speak to it. A deed that will result in his being barred from entering the Promised Land. And the story does not get better. There are battles lost. There's apostasy at Baal Peor. There's one frustration after another for Israel, for Moses, and, as we're told in Torah, for God as well. So why did the bottom fall out? Explanations abound. Our tradition suggests that while the Israelites were indeed freed from the physical restraints of their Egyptian bondage, psychologically and emotionally, they remained enslaved. No matter the miracles experienced and Torah received, after hundreds of years of oppression, the Exodus generation was simply ill-equipped to navigate the freedoms of their newfound existence. Another somewhat related explanation, most recently offered by Dr. Adrian Levine, is that the root of Israel's discontent is to be found in their misremembering their Egyptian slavery. In the austerity of their desert environs, the Israelites created an alternate memory of their past. Alternative facts. We've never heard of that. Okay? Never heard of that one. And they remembered not the taskmasters and the harsh labor, but they remembered that the Nile was filled with free and plentiful fish. There were cucumbers and there were melons that were growing in that fertile land. All those things that, whether or not they actually ever really existed, were recalled far more desirable than their present desert drudgery. Both explanations are good ones. There's much to be said for the first, namely that you can take the Israelite out of Egypt, but you can't take the Egypt out of the Israelite. No question, the Exodus generation was not poised to enter Canaan. So too it makes intuitive sense that the Israelites, no different than you or I, suffered from a trick of memory, longing for a yesteryear which was neither good nor perhaps as real as they recalled it to be. A third explanation, though, is possible. To say it most simply, somehow, somewhere along the way, the Israelites stopped appreciating the blessings of their lives. There was, objectively speaking, tov, good, to be had all around. They were liberated. They were God's chosen people. They were en route to Canaan, to the promised land. And in spite of all this, all they could see, all they could focus on was what was wrong, what they didn't have, where they, Moses, or perhaps even God, fell short. The text describes the nation with a very curious word. Kmit onanim. It's sometimes translated as if in mourning, which is to say that Israel, like a mourner, was defined not by what they had, but rather by what they had lost. There was a rabble that broke out in their midst, it says, a phrase that could be read to mean that within every Israelite there developed a toxic and corrosive sentiment that goaded them to consider their reality solely in terms of scarcity, of what they wanted to possess, not of abundance, but what they actually did possess. It was, as if you will, the precise inverse of the Passover song Dayenu. At the Seder in the Haggadah, we sing the verse by saying, Dayenu. It would have been enough. It would have been enough if God had only taken us out of Egypt. It would have been enough if God had only given us Torah. It would have been enough if God had given us the Sabbath. But here in the Torah itself, it is just the opposite. Neither the splitting of the sea, nor the giving of the Torah, nor the gift of the Sabbath, none of it was enough. And that is the cause, the root of the malady that afflicted Israel. Not enough food, not enough power, not enough honor, all symptomatic of a deficiency at the core of this generation. The villain in these chapters is the Israelite soul itself. Not that everything was perfect. It wasn't. There were challenges to be confronted, but there was also good, a lot of it. And Israel failed to appreciate it. And because they failed to see the promise in their midst, they were deemed unfit to enter into the promised land. In his great book, God in Search of Man, Abraham Joshua Heschel wrote, and I quote, "Mankind will not perish for want of information, but only for want of appreciation." As a philosopher of religion, Heschel meant to signal that it is not doubt, but wonder and appreciation that is at the root, not just of knowledge, not just of religious experience, but of life itself. As Jews, we are meant to fill our lives with blessings, at least 100 every day. You've been to Shabbat morning services. We start off with the morning blessings. We take care of 25 right off the bat. Okay? To see the extraordinary in the ordinary, and to find the sacred in the mundane. And yet, far too many of us, far too often, go through life like passengers on a train, viewing the blur of the passing countryside. We fail to appreciate the moments of awe and wonder that are ever present, were we only to pause and to take notice. No different than the Israelites of old, I know that is easy. Boy, do I know that's easy. Far too easy to go through life focusing not on what we do have, but rather on what we don't have. The person who slighted us, the office politic that diminished us, the hurt that, though it did not break us, we can't quite seem to let go. But all of us nevertheless have problems, loss and heartache, setbacks and stumbles. As a friend said to me the other day, if you think a person doesn't have tsuras, doesn't have woe, then it means that you don't yet know that person well enough. We all have tsuras in our families, in our careers, in our health, and otherwise. Blessed as we may be, there is tsuras. Given its inescapability, the only question becomes whether we allow that tsuras to define our being. Do we understand by what we have or by what we have lost? Shall we adopt, to use managerial terms, a mentality of abundance or one of scarcity? The latter, we know, will yield a state of perpetual dissatisfaction, hurt sustained and wrongs anticipated, and the belief that life is a zero-sum game. What you have is by definition what I don't. The alternative? To adopt a mentality of abundance is not to turn a blind eye to the imperfections of the world and humanity in which we find ourselves, but rather it is the conscious and intentional choice not to let those imperfections define and consume our being. There are enough, more than enough blessings to go around. There is much to be thankful for. As Ben Zoma teaches in Pirkei Avot, wealth is defined by one who is happy with their portion, a measurement that is ultimately left to each of us to determine. I cannot help but reflect on this year. For me, for my family, and here in this sanctuary and with you, our congregation, there have been moments of profound joy and proud successes, as well as sorrows and incredible setbacks. If I have any regrets, It is not so much any single low as in my retirement account this past week. What I regret, what I wish I could do better but fall short and far too often, is that I allow myself to see the cup half empty instead of half full. A hurt harbored beyond its due, a disappointment indulged, and worst of all, the good that abounds eclipsed or overlooked. My cup, I know, is not half empty. Nor, for that matter, is it half full. My cup runneth over. My wife, my family, my life, our community. There is so much for which to be grateful. Not to say that it hasn't been a challenging year, but please God, we are through the worst of the pandemic. We have seen unprecedented support for a Jewish president in the Ukraine, and that in a country that has a very dark history with Jews. We worry about the economy, the state of our country, and so many other things. However, we cannot reach the promised land unless we allow ourselves to see the promise that sits right in front of us. So let us open our eyes to that which we do have, appreciate it deeply, and express our gratitude. Modeh ani lefanecha, modim anachnu lach. I am grateful. We are grateful to you, God, our Creator. Al kulam, for it all. Each and every bit of it. Amen. We continue now with our Amidah, which you will find in your prayer books on page 164. I invite you to please rise.
Adonai sefatai tiftachu fi agi tehilatecha.
Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Avraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Be'elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor V'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshia U'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Ve'ezrat Sarah, Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah Rab Lehoshia, Morid Hatah, Mechalkel Chaim B'Chesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Noflim V'Rofei Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umekayem Emunato, Nishenei Afar, Michamocha Ba'al Gevurot, Umido Melach, Melech Memit, Umechaye, Umatzmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechaye hakol. HaKadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kadoshim b'chol yom yahalalucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. And we invite you to continue with the Amidah, either those words written on the page or those words in your heart. When you are finished, I invite you to please be seated.
Say shalom b'momar.
Hu yaseh shalom aleinu
Ve'al kol
Yisrael ve'al kol yoshvei tevel ve'imnu
Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imnu, Ve'imnu, Amen. La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kol Yisrael, Ve'al Kol Yoshvei Tevel, Ve'imnu, Ve'imnu, Amen. La 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 la, la la la, la 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 la, la 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 la.
Bill Keller, president of the congregation, would you like to greet the congregation? I'll even give you a microphone, if I can figure out how to turn it on there.
Thank you. Well, just a welcome and good Shabbos to everybody. Thank you for being here. Thanks to everybody watching, maybe even from Israel. Good Shabbos.
It's the middle of the night in Israel.
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
We appreciate everybody being here and look forward to those of you I haven't met before services. Once we're done at the Oneg, please come say hi. Love to welcome you. Thank you.
And the Oneg will be where tonight?
That's a
Good question. Okay. Because I don't see it.
We'll find out.
Okay. We'll all just need to find the food. Outside, right outside the front doors. Okay. And there we go. So I'm going to now ask you to turn in your prayer books to page 122 as we rise for the Kiddush. Is there somebody here that's having a birthday that's under the age of 13? Yeah. Would he like to come forward and join me for Kiddush on the Bima? Please rise for the sanctification of Shabbat. Would you like to hold a cup? You can even drink when we finish the bracha. Okay, not till we drink, not till we finish. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzav b'hanu. B'Shabbat Kodesha v'Ahava uvratzon hinechilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reshit, shihu yom tehila lemikra'e kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim, kivanu b'charta, Votanu kirashta mikol hamim v'shabat kodshecha be'ahava u'v'ratzon hinchaltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh hashabat. Now you can drink. Good? Yeah, okay, good. And no, it's non-alcoholic. We continue now on page 586 in our prayer books with Aleinu L'Shabeach. Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, Latei Kedula Liyotzer Breshit, Shelo Asanu Kegoye Haratzot, Velo Hosamanu Kemishbechot Adama, Shelo Sam Chelkenu Kahem, Megohor Aleinu Kechol Hamonam, Vanachnu Koreim, Umishtachavim Umodim, Lifnei Melech, Malchei Hamlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. V'ne'emar v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu yihye Adonai echad u'shemo echad. Please be seated. We think of our loved ones whom death has recently taken from us, those who died at this season in years past, and those whom we have drawn into our hearts with our own. We observe the Shloshim of Ethel Altman, Don Hathaway, and Deborah Frank. And we observe the blessed yard sites, the anniversaries of whose death occurred during this week, of Aaron Burke, Bernard Bigg, Dorothy Chalif, Jerry Diamond, Pauline Friedman, Alan Gerson, Evelyn Ginsberg, Cyrus Goldman, Shirley Goodman, Marjorie Israel, Alvin E. Keller, Marion Levin, Albert Lindemann, David Niger, Deborah Niger, Joe Saperstein, Etta Schechter, Marlene Schleifer, Abraham Scott, Isabel Summerstein, Ida Wilner Stern, and Sam Weintraub. If there are any names that I did not read that you would like to be said aloud, I would ask you to do so as I look towards you. I'll ask those of you, if there are any here observing Shiva this week, to please rise at this time. Shloshim, 30 days. Shana, a year. And I invite the congregation to join you, so you are not standing alone, as we recite the Kaddish, page 598. Together we say, Yitkadal v'yitkadash merabah, b'alma divrach hirutei v'amlich malachutei, b'chaye echon u'v'yom echon, u'v'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru, Amen. Yehi shemei rabah mavorach, le'olam olamei lamaya, yitbarach, v'yishtabach, v'yitba'ar, v'yitromam, v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar, v'yitaleh, v'yitalal, shmei dekudesha b'richu, le'elah min kol birchata v'shirata, tush b'chata v'nechemata, da'amiran b'alma v'imru, Amen. Yehi shalom rabah min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru, Amen. And we join together as we put our arms around each other, singing, Oseh shalom b'mromav. May God, who makes peace in the high places, make peace here on earth, as we all say, Amen. Only if you're comfortable. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael ve'imru imru, Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Before we do Motzi, let me just express my thanks to Kira Goldman, who is our soloist this evening. It was a pleasure worshiping with you. Thank you very much. And let us all join to, it's all sliced. Okay. I could not pick it up. Okay. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, hamotzi lechem min haaretz. Shabbat Shalom. Come join us for the oneg.